Hello ladies and gentlemen, I am BorderWise and welcome to From the Depths, Hydrofoil Skimmer tutorial. That sentence was not grammatically correct, but it's okay, we're carrying on anyway. So recently a bunch of different people on the interesting planet that is YouTube have asked me to do a Hydrofoil Skimmer guide, so well, here it is. And in my messing around off screen, I have learned that, well, this is something I thought was going to be a reasonably complicated thing, so like messing around with hydrofoils and PIDs and ACBs and etc, control surfaces, right up the wazoo. As it turns out, the too long didn't read version of how to make a hydrofoil craft is these following steps. You make a craft. You duct tape hydrofoils on the bottom. You set them to have an idle angle of 45 degrees and not to respond to any AI inputs, so they're just fixed at 45 degrees. And then you strap a whopping big jet engine to it so it goes fast. And there you have it. You have a hydrofoil skimmer that's perfectly functional. If not able to correct itself under fire and just, I don't know, it can't do more complicated stuff, but it works. And so that's what we've got here, and this is one of 3 crafts which I perhaps put slightly more effort into than was needed. Certainly didn't need a paint job that it's not entirely necessary for demonstration purposes, but I felt like doing it for some reason. Old style paint job with the white racing stripe down it. Okay, so let's talk about hydrofoils for a second. Firstly, I'm going to talk about the settings of the hydrofoil in case anyone watching is having a moment of too long didn't read. This is the settings I'm currently using on all the hydrofoils on this craft. Resting angle 45 degrees. Not responding to any AI inputs because it doesn't need it. It's just got hydrofoil pods in all the important parts. It's got one in the front to keep the nose out of the water, it's got one in the back to keep the tail out of the water, and one on either side to keep it nice and steady. So if I do this, you'll see that every single hydrofoil is providing constant upwards force, because that's what hydrofoils are good for. Incidentally, hydrofoils don't need to be exposed to the scary outside world. They work perfectly well when just surrounded by blocks for some reason. I'm not entirely sure why that is, but you know what? I am not going to question it because it's very convenient. Okay, so let's talk about hydrofoils for a second. Why would you hydrofoil? Well, first off, it is probably the best way to get a surface vehicle that is very, very fast, because the thing is, for the most part, out of the water, just skimming along the top of it. And it goes super fast as a direct result because it's not suffering from excessive drag in the water. This one is not particularly fast, by the way. It's currently turning, but in a straight line it goes up to about 60 meters per second. Hopefully we'll get to see that. And speedometer is ticking up. Yep, 61 meters per second at maximum. So yeah, they're very fast. And as a result of that speed, they're good for 2 things. Keeping distance or closing distance. So, if we spawn in, say, let's spawn in a white flare thing on my team, just so we don't, I don't know, get annihilated immediately. So we spawn in something like the Vandals, and I think I just remember that my fleet colors are set to the Scarlet Dawn. So this fella is a hydrofoil craft, I think. Yep, so you see their underside is full of hydrofoils. So now you, my friend, you go over there. And it goes like stink. So if I go over here, this thing is motoring along quite fast. Ooh, very fast. About, yep, over 100 meters per second. Top speed is actually high. Come on now. Goes 101 meters per second. Get it right. So yeah, they're very fast, and this particular one is a ramming vehicle, as you can probably tell by all the rams on it, and just sitting on the surface of the water and going so fast means it's it's at the perfect height to ram other surface vehicles, which is great. The alternate thing you can do is to keep your distance. So here we have The Exodyne, which is the complete opposite, because this thing packs lasers. Similar story, it's covered with hydrofoils down here, lots of them, and similar thing, it's not responding to any input from the AI, it's just resting angle 45 degrees because that's all it needs. It also has a crap ton of rudders, which reminds me, you can basically have rudders as well. Function the same way as hydrofoils, you just stick them sideways and change the way they respond. Not gonna cover that today because that's a little bit more finicky, and hydrofoils are, well, they're easier. Also, you don't really need this many rudders. Also, this thing Tokyo drifts like no one's business. Alright, so if you look at the Exodyne, you'll see that the combat circular distance is just under 2,000 meters. And so this guy sits at a distance, and so going high speed is very rarely a disadvantage from the depths, and hydrofoils are good at both short range and long range for the same reason. They're fast. They're faster than most things so they can keep the distance, and they're faster than most things so they can catch up to them. Very good. And the third big advantage of hydrofoils is that you will notice that this thing... Actually, let's destroy all vehicles and load this puppy in again. Please do not sail off into space. I will hate it if you do that. So the third advantage is that this thing is mostly out of the water once it gets a wiggle on, and so it is pretty much immune to torpedoes. And I will demonstrate that right now by spawning in a really crappy little torpedo. So, Grey Talons, why not? And so once this thing hops out of the water and starts doing its hydrofoil thing, torpedoes, well, they can kind of lock onto it, but at the same time, they're gonna have a bit of trouble doing that. Especially since how much is actually in the water changes at any given moment. And it looks like, yep, that torpedo lost the target. This one is still locking on. And because this thing is fast, it's, yep, and they just lost the target again. So the sonar signature of this this craft, even though it is touching the water, is... Let's not do this. Whoopsie daisy. The sonar signature is very, very low. So we go here and look over there. It is about, at maximum, you'll see it's about 261 meters. And that's directly below it, where torpedoes tend not to come from. So if we go over here, and let's see here from the sides, it's around 175 meters. Basically nothing. Basically invisible to torpedoes, which is why all these torpedoes are just whiffing right here. These ones are locked on, but the thing they're tracking is going at 60 meters per second and keeps dipping its little hydrofoil pods in and out of the water, so they're constantly losing the target. So, if you still want a reasonably heavy thing that is perhaps too heavy to fly, but you do want it to be torpedo-proof, a hydrofoil skimmer is a good way to go. They are not perfect, though, so the first problem is hydrofoils are really fragile. And no, I don't necessarily mean the craft, I mean the hydrofoils themselves. You can see here they have a health of 85 and armor of 1, which is absolutely rubbish durability. For comparison, a wooden block has 180 health and 8 armor. So these hydrofoils are weaker than standard wooden blocks, which is why it's a good idea to cover them up, like as I have done with these bright red pods so the enemy can see exactly what to shoot at. I'm considerate like that. And if you have uncontrolled hydrofoils like this, you are going to run into problems if they get damaged, especially if one side gets damaged more than the other, which almost inevitably happens, because if it's a ramming craft, the hydrofoils in the front are more likely to get shot at, and if it's a broadsider, the hydrofoils on the sides are also more likely to get shot at. And if the thing is constantly maintaining minimum broadside distance, the ones on the back are more likely to get shot at, so, like, it's, you know, it's all terrible all the time. Well, not really, that's an exaggeration. Basically, if, oh, I don't know, if something tragic were to happen, like this hydrofoil pod getting blown up, you'll see that this thing immediately starts rolling. It immediately starts rolling right into the water, and it's slowed way the hell down, and I think, yep, torpedoes finally are getting a bead on it, and we're about to have a miserable time because this thing is made out of wood and EMP. Not made out of wood and EMP, but yeah, you get the idea. So yeah, if we do something slightly different, and we say, oh, I don't know, if we blow up the front one, you'll see, yep, immediately this thing dips into the water, and we've been AI deaded even though we're made of wood. Making your craft out of wood, not an immediate EMP-proof solution. Handy reminder. So hydrofoils are not exactly, well, they're not tough in a general sense compared to surface displacement vessels or even flying vessels, because what with the absolute miracle that is ducts, like including heavy armor ducts like this one, you can... Is this going to pitch into the water now? Yes, it is! It's actually is keeping steady quite nicely. But yeah, so a flying craft can have all their daddy blades and their jets and their custom jets and stuff like that hidden behind ducts, and it's all good. But with hydrofoils, you pretty much always need to stick the hydrofoils themselves as close to the bottom of the craft as you can in order to minimize drag from the water. So they're pretty much always going to be vulnerable. Like, that's kind of unavoidable, really. And on a similar note, because this thing pokes out of the water, or rather, it's mostly out of the water entirely, it can't rely on water armor. So, if you have a surface displacement vessel, so let's have a good example of that. Let's have a... What can we do here? I'm trying to remember what's what. Clydesdale, what does that do again? Aha! Perfect. We'll also get to see this thing firing its wee guns as well. So, a surface... Wow, this is a really good example. So a surface displacement vessel, as in a thing that sits in the water and displaces it, has the advantage that water slows down incoming projectiles, and it also weakens lasers considerably, and also airborne missiles can't really hit anything under the water, so it's actually pretty safe to stick vulnerable things down here. Let's turn the light back on. So you see down here, it's compartments, buoyancy compartments for the most part. Wow, this thing is ironclad as hell. And in the lower compartments down here, this is where I'm gonna guess there's delicious... Aha! Here's the AI. It's touching metal, but don't worry about that. This is not designed to be awesome. It's designed to be a thing. Ah, here's the ammo. Yeah, so this ammunition compartment is pretty darn safe from a lot of different things because it's well under the water. It's nice and safe, and that means that this particular Onyx Watchcraft is actually kind of tanky as a direct result. And our thing is not equipped for this at all, so it's probably going to lose this fight even though it can dodge those slow shells. I stand corrected. Let's turn the thing back on. Whoopsie daisy, we're going to die. Yep. This is why you don't make things out of wood, ladies and gentlemen. I did that because I like how wood look. And here's a perfect example of what happens when your hydrofoil get dead. Let's turn you on God mode for a second because I like you. So yeah, that's the main disadvantage of hydrofoils is that, well, even if you're not a dummy and you make it out of something other than wood, like literally anything else, it is going to not suffer hits well if it gets hit in the hydrofoils. It will start to be very janky. So, yeah. And now let's talk about, well, some variants you can do. So, hydrofoils I tend to classify as, well, this is something I've made up, really. You can stick the hydrofoil in pods, or you can stick them just in a huge layer inside the hull itself. Either works pretty well. The advantage of pods is that, well, they're underneath the craft and they're lifted out of the water, and you can go faster as a direct result, and also that's maximum torpedo proofness. The disadvantage of sticking it in the hull is redundancy. So if I do the crazy thing of loading in the second Hydrofoil, which I perhaps put way too much effort into. Oh, hello. You are, I spawned you in on the enemy team. Bravo. Second time I've done that. So you'll notice that this fella doesn't have any Hydrofoil pods, it just has like this lead keel down here. But this layer, this extra layer of hull is full of Hydrofoils, and so this guy bounces along beautifully. It's also set to close in to attack things, so it's making use of the whole speed thing. Also, I think it's good. This guy's going to win because its weaponry is slightly better against shooting fast things. I have no idea why this radar dome is here. It just is. Don't question it. It just is. Let's actually view this thing a little bit better, shall we? Let's have a look here. So, yeah, casemates for absolutely no reason. Also lots of truss blocks for no reason. So you can see here that the entire lower hull of this thing is just filled with Hydrofoils, which is lovely redundancy. If we spawn in something for this thing to shoot at, like a bastion, for instance. So you see this thing steadies itself quite nicely. It bounces along like an absolute fiend. 60 meters per second, going quite nicely. The disadvantage of this kind of hull thing is that all the blocks beneath the Hydrofoils will be in the water, and they will be visible on sonar. So this design is slightly less torpedo-proof than the other one, and I can demonstrate that with ruthless efficacy by spawning in the axolotl again on the Onyx Watch team, because the Onyx Watch is known for their deadly submarines that are pale in color. Also, we just got hit right in the turret, and we actually survived that. That's amazing. So we're actually cruising around right on top of the axolotl, which is hilarious. Means the torpedoes are going to have a hard time hitting us anyway. Although this one is going to manage. 60 meters per second, very convenient. That missed us. These probably won't, because tight corners. So you see, these torps are locking on, and these aren't as fast as torpedoes get. It is very convenient how the thing is bouncing around in the water quite a bit, because it bounces in, and then it bounces out again, and the torpedoes is the target, but they're still tracking us consistently, and yep, we just got our tail feathers singed, and that's an issue. Also, the Bastion keeps shooting us, and that's jolly rude. How dare you? Also, we've been hit right in the detection by the looks of it, so that hurts a man's feelings. Yep, we just got torpedoed again. Yep, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Yep. So this is perhaps more durable against everything except torpedoes, and you will notice that, yeah, we've just been AI deaded again by torpedoes, because these things are made of wood and they're not torpedo proof. Or EMP proof, I should say. Oh, is my face red. Good thing these aren't serious builds. They are wooden fun canoes. So yeah, one last thing to mention about Hydrofoils is that I recommend not mixing uncontrolled and controlled Hydrofoils. So, if we go over here, Hydrofoil number 3, this is possibly the most ridiculous Hydrofoil I've made here. Darn it. Let us actually spawn it in on my team so I can click on it and build it and do cool things with it. So yeah, this thing has a bazooka. It's got a single huge kinetic missile, and I've decorated it to look like a just giant bazooka. I have no idea if this actually looks good. I look at it and it makes me happy, and I guess that's all that counts. So notice that this thing, two major differences aside from the bazooka. The pods are taller, so this thing kind of pops out of the water a little bit more. And it's got control, it's got little propellers. So the pitch propellers are just controlled by the AI, and these roll props are controlled by a PID. It's also got jet engines. And the reason for this is that if you want to keep your Hydrofoils consistent, even with battle damage, it helps to have extra control on them, be it an AI, be it an ACB, be it a PID, or even a breadboard, assuming you know how to breadboard. It's very difficult, I know. So, if we get this thing running around like a crazy person. So notice that this thing has a bit of a wobbly start out of the water. But there we go. Jets are keeping us steady. Props are keeping us steady. And jolly good. And the thing did just fire its bazooka into the water. But the great thing about having redundant control surfaces on a hydrofoil is this thing can maintain its position on one leg, so to speak. So that jet is now working overtime in order to keep the thing nice and steady, and Rambok can repair it, and it's all very good. And I should also mention the back pod can also be blown off, and the thing can still barely, just barely, oh, we might not be making it. The thing can barely hang on, so handy thing. And you'll notice I'm not using hydrofoils to control that, because that's not a good idea. Still doing better than we would otherwise. Tee-hee-hee. Okay, you can repair. You can repair. You're a good lassie. You can repair. You can do that thing. So yeah, don't use the reason you don't want to use hydrofoils as the extra control surfaces if you're using uncontrolled hydrofoils is because they need to be in the water to excuse you? No wonder this wasn't working. Holy damn. Or maybe that's because I blew it up. Well, this thing's giving me so much trouble, I swear to G. It is nice to see, always, how you can make a ridiculous craft functional, because we are peeling this bastion like an onion with a huge kinetic missile, and that makes me happy. We need to shoot a Marauder, I just realized. So if I do the crazy thing, I'm spawning in a Marauder on the Onyx Watch side, so Marauder goes here, and Hydrofoil number 2 goes nice and close, and Hydrofoil number 1 goes slightly less close. We can look at all 3 of them, and that's fun. I really did not need to make 3 different crafts for this video, but I felt like it. I was in a canoe mood. A commode. That sounds a lot like commode, actually. Please don't crash straight into the bastion. That would be a bad idea. No! Why you do things? Why you do things? So yeah, that's basically it for this Hydrofoil guide. I'm not going to say it's easy, because very few things in From the Depths are straightforward and easy. Of course the crap thing. Bleh, of course the cram thing is the crap thing. Why wouldn't it be? Why wouldn't it be? Note to self, next time I make a Hydrofoil cram craft, really armor it. Armor the heck out of it, because it's not doing very well otherwise. Okay, so yeah, that basically does it for this Hydrofoil guide. It's just, once again, too long didn't read. Duct tape 45-degree hydrofoils to the bottom of your craft. Big jet engine, make it go fast. You have a Hydrofoil skimmer. Well done. So yeah. Ouch. Thank you all so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. Support me on Patreon or YouTube membership if you like. It really helps. And there's fun perks in it for you. Thank you to all my current supporters, and I will see you next time in From the Depths. Farewell.